Okay, Unreal Engine 5 has been revealed. Now, I don't have any idea of what visual scripting will look like in Unreal Engine 5. If we will have any update to that, if it will look different visually. So I'll probably have to re-record the blueprint tutorials when Unreal Engine 5 releases. But I still want to introduce it, so I had a huge course, a module planned on blueprint visual scripting, and I'd still like to do that. But just to get started, so for this first iteration, I'm going to introduce the basic concepts so that it's easier for you to follow along with the C++ section. So instead of introducing every single node and option and all of that, I'm just going to add a few videos to introduce some of the basics that you might need and find useful. So at least at the time of recording, all I know about is the Lumen, so Nanite and Lumen. In a previous live stream, Tim talked about the fact that they might give the next version of Unreal Engine a bit of a facelift. Now, again, I don't have any idea of what that will look like. So for right now, my primary focus is the C++ content, so the base C++ 101 and 102 modules, and again, a basic introduction to blueprints, and also the fundamentals of C++ in Unreal Engine, plus a small project just to get you started. But I want to finish and add as much content as I can to the C++ 101 and 102 modules before Unreal Engine 5 comes out, because once again, I might have to go and re-record all of the Unreal Engine 4 content. So once again, this is going to be more like a quick start to blueprints in Unreal Engine 4. Okay, to get started with this, I'll go to Window, and I'll go to Developer Tools, and the Class Viewer. Now you can filter this, so you can click Filter, and then you can filter. So if you only want to see actors, placeable only, and so on. I'll just leave it as it is right here. And in the previous video, I talked about is a versus has a relationships and so on. Especially if you are new, you might not quite get how this works, and it's an important component in Unreal Engine 4. It makes heavy use of inheritance. So you'll see inheritance be used with almost everything you do. For example, you have actor, and let's say we want to create a camera. So you have a camera actor, you have sign camera actor. Those are actors because they inherit from actor. So camera actor is an actor because it inherits from that, and sign camera actor is an actor, but it's also a camera actor. So what I do here is I just click in here to search. If you want to clear that search, you can click on the X. So we'll search for pawn, so P-A-W-N, that is also an actor. You can hover over these and you can see information, so in the pop-up, an actor is the base class for an object that can be placed or spawned in a level. Now a pawn is the base class for all actors that can be possessed by players or AI. Now what does possessed mean? That sounds like something from a horror movie, right? Well, this simply means you can take control of that actor and you can move it around. It also allows for input basically, so if you press some key on the keyboard, then once again you can move it around. You can have the AI move a pawn around and so forth. So in a Pong game, for example, you can have these pedals, and you can have an AI pedal where you script the logic for the AI to move that pedal around, that a pawn around. And similarly, the player will move its own pawn around to hit the ball, right, and to play along. So that's the main difference, but it is an actor, it is in the world, but it has extended functionality. But it inherits the functions, it inherits the members, so the variables of the actor class. So this class view is very useful. You can, for example, right click on this, and then you can create a new C++ class or a blueprint class from that. Now we'll talk about that in more detail. I just wanted to highlight that this is another place where you can go and search for classes, and you can create by right clicking. You can create by having that as a parent right in this class viewer, so it's very handy. You can dock this somewhere if you want to. To make the concept of an actor a bit more clear, let's say I have a project here and I have the starter content. So I'll go into that, and maybe I'll go into props. We have a chair, for example, and this is a static mesh. you can see it doesn't show anything in this pop-up here that talks about actors, because this is not an actor, it is not a blueprint, and it's not a C++ actor or anything like that. It is just an asset or a static mesh. Now you do have a few blueprints. So this thing is a blueprint class. The parent class is an actor, so it's set up already for us to use. But let's go back to that props folder, and as soon as I left click and drag an instance of that into my world, now in the world outliner, you can see the type is now a static mesh actor. So Unreal basically goes behind the scenes and converts that to an actor. So how can we create a blueprint? Well, you can right click in your content browser, for example, and then you can go to blueprint class. You can also click this add new and then click blueprint class once again. Okay, so now we have to choose the parent class. And as I explained before, Unreal makes extensive use of inheritance. So you can also click down here to choose. So these are your commonly used parent classes that you can choose from, but you have many more in this list down here. What's nice about this is you also have help, so you can click here to go to the documentation. Let's choose actor, for example. Now I'll have to name that. I'll just call this test actor because it's important for you to go and play around with things, right? So it's nice just to have an actor that you can kind of mess around with. You're not concerned if you kind of mess it up. It's fine, you can just delete this and start over, right? You have an underscore BP. That is a convention. You'll see that as a prefix. Here I'm doing it as a postfix, but typically it has some sort of BP to separate it out from other classes such as C++ classes and the rest of your content as well. Now that has not been saved, you'll see it as an asterisk. I'll just click save all to save that. And that is an actor, so I can drag it into my world. Now it doesn't have a mesh like that chair that we saw, but we do have this circle billboard here that just shows us the location of that actor in the world. For now, I'll just delete that. Once you have a blueprint class set up like this is just the class, right? So you can drag multiple instances of that into your world, and you can change settings on each instance, as I have explained in the previous lecture. So the point is you'll be filling up your levels or your maps with various actors, whether they have some scripted behavior attached or not, but they'll be deriving from actor. So I'll just click the play button here, and you can actually just go and simulate too if you want. And then in the world outliner, I'll go and search for the game mode. As soon as you click play, it'll go and spawn various things into your level that we don't really interact with. It kind of just exists in your world, and in this case it's the game mode base, which controls things like the rules of your game. And you can actually right click, and if you go and create a blueprint class, you can create your own game mode right here, and you see the description as well. Define the game being played, its rules, scoring, and so on. Also attached to your level or map is, if I click down here, you have the level blueprint. So I'll open that up. Each map will basically have its own level script, and this is very useful if you want to reference various actors in your world. So I'll just demonstrate here. So I have this actor in my world. I can right click and I can create a reference to that test actor. Gives us basically a getter, so it gets a reference to that, and then we can do stuff with that in our level. This makes it very easy. We don't have to do some array and then search our level for all of the actors that currently exist in there and then look for a particular one or something like that. We can just go and select it and then right click and then get a reference to it. So that is what level blueprints are useful for. Just for comparison, we see we have the event graph right here. I'll actually just close off the level script. Back in the content browser, I'll double click to open up the test actor blueprint. Then we get event begin play, we have event tick, and another one here, actor begin overlap as well. We have the event graph. So these tabs up here, we have a construction script and also this 3D viewport. Now I would like to mention some of these purple nodes. So in the construction script, for example, you cannot go and delete this node. This type of node we cannot delete. Whereas the event begin play, for example, you can delete that. Right click and type out event begin play, for example, and you can get that back. Before I talk about programming and such in more detail and how to create variables, I like to go back to the viewport. So this is where we get a 3D view of our actor, or what makes up our actor. The class itself is like an empty container. We have to go and create sub-objects that will represent specific things. So we can do that by going here in this component tree hierarchy. Up here you can see we have the test actor. That is simply a reference to the actor itself, to the object instance itself. Whereas what we have down here is components. You can add more components by clicking here. For example, you can add a static mesh or some of these presets. Let's just go with a cube, for example. If you hover over it, it says these helpers are very handy. It says static mesh component is used to create an instance of use static mesh, and that consists of a static set of polygons. But once again, you can now go and rename that, and even though it is set to a cube by default, you can actually go and change that if you want to something else. So I'll just undo that. Now by default, if you create an actor, this will have this default scene root. It cannot be copied, renamed, or deleted. Now what you can do is you can replace it. I'm going to leave it as is for right now, and I'm just going to compile and save. I'll just delete one of those instances, move that up, move around a bit, press end on the keyboard to snap it down, and you'll notice that it doesn't snap the way we expect. Press end once again, and it doesn't snap in a way where it doesn't go and lie, on the floor, basically. It kind of goes through, and that's because of where that pivot is, but it's also because the root component is very important, and currently we have a uScene component as the root component. Go and replace that with this cube by dragging and dropping that onto that. So simply left click and hold on that, drag that onto that default scene root. You get this step here, drop here to make cube the new root. The default root will be deleted. So I'll do that. I can just go and save that. And now if I press end, that should work fine. So it snaps to the ground as you would expect now. So what is that default scene root? Well, you can actually click on here, and you see you have a scene component. That is basically what comes up by default. And when you create an actor, you'll see it has no rendering or collision capabilities, but it does support attachment, and it has a transform. And basically what's going to happen is, regardless of whether you have that empty scene root component and you go and attach stuff to that, or if you have this static mesh, what's going to happen is this actor, so self, it is going to get the transform from the root component, which in this case is this cube. Alright, so it's going to draw that from the root component. And now we can go and add something else. Just scroll down. You have a few shapes that you can add. You have cameras. You have collision. And let's say you do a point light. I'll just navigate. You can right click and hold and use WASD to move around, to navigate around. So with that selected, I can move that around now in my scene to position it. You also have the transform that will show up on this particular component now. So you can type it in if you want. You can change the light color. I'll just make that a silly blue color so it's easy to see. Of course, you can go and rename that, and you can change the parent-child relationships right here as well. Okay, I'll just compile and save that. And now you can see this cube has now that light attached to it. You also have various useful utility components. So you have the rotating movement component. So you can go and add that rotating movement component. If you select that, you have various options. You can click on simulate, and that will now actually simulate within this editor. so you can get an idea of what's going on before you go and make your final changes or save that out basically. Just click on that again to stop that. Now you can make changes to that. Let's say 90. Simulate, that's now much slower. And you'll notice that this component is not a scene component, so if you drag and drop that, or try and drag and drop that onto something else, then you cannot parent it basically. It's just a utility component that is attached to this actor now. I'll just go and compile and save that actually, and then you can play or you can simulate, and you'll see this is what we get. Alright, so I'll go back here. I just wanted to show you this quickly. This is where I'll be adding components, various components, to compose basically what your actor will look like, including things like, and you have particle systems and various other things. Okay, I'll go back to the event graph. Okay, I think I'm going to stop the video here, and then in the next video we'll continue right where we left off.